What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we're going to go over safeties. I know a lot of you guys have been asking for this one, so I wanted to break down some of my favorite safety fits in free agency for the Pittsburgh Steelers, guys that I am hoping that they are going to show interest in. We'll break all of those guys down individually, just like we have done throughout this kind of series that we've been doing. Just before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about the kind of state of the Steelers' finances, and also talk about what's currently on the roster. That conversation obviously begins with Minka Fitzpatrick. Had a down season by his standards last year. Banged up. Just it really felt like nothing was really working for him. A big talking point was that Fitzpatrick played a lot more near the line of scrimmage last year. He played some in the slot, played a lot in the box. We didn't see him play as much of that center fielder role that we were really becoming accustomed to. So I think the biggest question I have is, what's the Steelers' plan for Minka? Is he going to transition back to playing more free safety? Are they trying to keep him more near the box? Are they going to play him a little bit more in the slot? Is he this movable chess piece that they will move around depending on the matchup, depending on the week, the circumstance, the game plan, all those different things? Those are all questions that we don't know the answer to, but maybe the clues on who they go after in free agency could provide us answers to. So, that's one of the big things that I'm very curious to find out. But, Fitzpatrick, phenomenal player, definitely one of the foundational building blocks for the Steelers defense. The other guy that's still currently in the secondary right now, DeMonte KZ. We kind of know about KZ, right? He had the suspension last year, but KZ, lighter guy, but really prefers to play deep, center fielder type with excellent ball skills and solid range. The playmaking has always been there for him. I think that KZ, he really played his best ball, I think 2 years ago after he came back from the injury, gave them a big lift, those three safety sets with, him, Edmonds, and Minka. It was just a really cohesive unit. And then, they lose Edmonds last offseason, try to kind of fill that role with Keanu Neal, another bigger box safety type. And then this year, those results just weren't as plentiful. I feel like, it just seemed like a little bit of a wonkier fit with all of those guys. Of course, the injuries to all three of those guys played a big part, along with the linebacker group who was banged up all season. But, I think that they need to continue to add to that room. But I think that KZ, as of right now, it looks like he's going to be a part of that. They can save $3 million by moving on to him, or on from him, I should say. But I think as of right now, it looks like he's going to be in the mix. They did let go of Keanu Neal, saved a little bit of cap space. Trenton Thompson gave them some solid minutes, I felt like, down the stretch last season. So that's another guy that could potentially fill in a depth role. But, all in all, the Steelers are sitting on about $28 million right now in cap space, according to Over the Cap. They're in a really good spot. It's not like they're going to go out and just ball out and start throwing $100 million contracts everywhere. But the Steelers do have plenty of room to, play around, get some quality guys, some starting caliber players in free agency. And I'm really excited about, the guys that they will potentially show interest in. Still have options too with Fitzpatrick, with Watt, with Highsmith, those guys in terms of, full restructures available, restructuring their contracts to free up some more cap space if they choose to go that route. We'll see. So, the Steelers defense is going to look a lot different next season. They let go of Patrick Peterson. We already talked about Keanu Neal, Quan Alexander, Levi Wallace, all those guys exiting. They're going to need to bring in some guys to, play some roles. And, we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting next week. As per the usual, we'll kind of go in order of these guys. I'll break these guys down in order. Just before we get started, please make sure, like the video, subscribe, comment, all that stuff, turn on notifications. Free, easy way to support the channel, and I really appreciate it. So the number one guy that we are going to talk about is going to be Cam Curl from Washington. I really like Cam Curl, man. This is a really good player. I almost debated on not putting him on this list for the simple fact of I look at the contract projections for him, which we'll get to here in a second, and I just think he's going to be out of their price range or out of the budget that they're looking to spend in. But having said that, I just really enjoyed watching this dude's tape, and I've always kind of been a fan, so I wanted to kind of gush about him for a moment. And I do think that he would be an excellent fit for what they want. Just kind of going through synopsis of some of my notes, 25 years old. Actually doesn't turn 25 for a couple months, I believe. 6'1", 205 pounds, 1,000 snaps last season. Played all over the place. 428 snaps in the box, 422 back deep, and 166 snaps in the slot. This is a guy who wore basically every hat imaginable for the Washington defense that really, left a lot to be desired, if I'm being completely honest, both in terms of numbers and just what I saw on film. But this dude, even played some linebacker. Whatever they needed, he could do it. This is a guy who highly intelligent, jack of all trades, master of none. Like I said, assignment flexibility, positional versatility is kind of his calling card. He can do a little bit of everything, and he does everything extremely well. Excellent eyes, processing against the run. This dude plays like he processes things in front of him like a linebacker. It's really, really impressive. Incredibly sound player. He makes tackles from depth when he's aligned. Kind of in that split safety. They played a lot of quarters, handled all those assignments very well. I also think he's a very reliable player when he's matched up against tight ends. That's something I think a lot of Steelers fans are consistently complaining to me about is they want a guy that can come in and play some tight end assignments. I know that was maybe one of the more underrated things that Terrell Edmonds did over the course of his time in Pittsburgh. He did have some good moments, especially as he developed in terms of just taking away some of those threats over the middle with those bigger targets. But this is a dude that has the body type, he has the play strength, he has the physicality, and just the overall athletic ability to match up with pretty much everybody that you're going to want to put in terms of those big slots or the tight ends, that they're looking for. So I think the big thing about Curl is going to be the lack of ball production. This is a guy who picked off, I think, 3 passes in his rookie season, and then he hasn't had an interception over the last couple of years. Now, as we saw with Minkah Fitzpatrick last season, turnover luck can be just that. I mean, sometimes you're just not in the right place at the right time. But Curl is interesting because when I watch his film, it seems like he's always in the right place. He's always sound. It's just the lack of splash that comes with his profile makes it a little bit tricky because he is a good player. It's just if you're spending kind of at near the top of the free agent market, like he's one of the better free agents available at the position, I think, the question is going to become of what do you pay a player like that who is very good, but he doesn't necessarily change the game or, impact the game with turnovers. So Pro Football Focus, like I said, contract projections, we'll be using, Brad Spielberger's numbers. They have him right now projected at 4 years, 46 million, 26 million guaranteed. So a little that's, dipping into the double digit market. Now, I don't know. Again, this is at the top of the market. This type of contract will be the highest contract that the Steelers have ever spent in free agency. You think back, I think James Daniels is still their biggest free agent signing ever. And this would be a couple million per year over that. Now the cap has risen and all those things. This is about the highest I could see them possibly going. And I do think that the Steelers are maybe going to make one, I don't want to say splash, like we're not talking about a superstar player, but a really good player like a Cam Curl. I do think that they could definitely make a signing like this, and it could potentially even be on the defensive side of the ball, even though that's where a lot of the money is. I just look at some of the holes that they got to fill, and this free agent class in general is excellent. If the Steelers come away without a 3-down starter and a good player out of this class, I'm going to be extremely worried because there's so many options, so many different flavors. The reason why Curl is at the top of the list for me is because he can do everything. He can play deep. You can make him interchangeable. You can play him in the deep third. You can play him in the box. You can say if you're facing a really good tight end, you can have him match up against that guy. Excellent run defender. Has improved every single year as a tackler. I think he's a sub 10% missed tackle rate. That's exactly what you want from a secondary player. He's just a really good dude. And, this is the guy, again, doesn't turn 25 for a couple more months or weeks or something like that. I think it's important to note that when you're talking about free agents and, signing guys to second contracts, you're not paying them just for what they've been. You're also paying them for what they could potentially become. And it's a little bit of a risk. Maybe that playmaking does come with age or, maybe he just has a little bit better turnover luck. But this is a player that's definitely still ascending and can get a lot better. And I think he's on the trajectory towards being, one of the more versatile, well-rounded safeties in the entire NFL. So talk about, taking a swing. This is the type of player that I think you want to swing on. So next player we're going to go over kind of the guy that probably has been talked about the most is Jordan Whitehead, former, Pitt guy, has that background. A lot of Steelers fans have the familiarity with him. Whitehead's a really interesting player, man. He played some offensive side of the ball, obviously in high school, but also in college. I mean, this is a dude who very good athlete. He's now 27 years old. He's got kind of that shorter, stockier build. He's only about 5'10", but he's like 200 pounds. He's a well-built dude. His snap alignments last season, 325 snaps in the box, 507 snaps back deep, and then 219 snaps in the slot. He really entered the league. I think he was drafted by Tampa. I can't remember what round. But kind of the process with him when he was in Tampa was, he played a lot in the box and actually established himself as one of the more fearless and better run defending box safeties in the entire NFL. Hit the free agent market a couple years ago. The Jets showed early interest, I believe, and he was a guy that I thought the Steelers may target when he was available the first time. And then really his role with the Jets has been completely different. That quarter scheme, he's played a lot of top down, but he's also played a lot of free safety, like traditional free safety, which is completely different from where he was really primarily utilized in Tampa Bay. And he's honestly surprisingly done a pretty good job. I was kind of watching the film, and some of the range and the playmaking ability at free safety, a pretty big surprise. I really like the way he triggered downhill. So he's a really nice player. The big things with him is just the lack of length. He has like sub 30-inch arms. One of the games that I watched was against the Raiders, I believe, and he just got absolutely mossed by Michael Mayer for a touchdown. And it was just one of those things where he's in good position. It's just he just doesn't have the size or length to some of those bigger targets are going to give him a little bit of issues. But he's got good speed, good range. He's a really good athlete. Like I said, he is a ferocious player near the line of scrimmage. This dude loves to hit, loves to, he packs a pop too for his size. The other thing that I would just say is, he is a poor tackler. You just look at the numbers, 18 and a half missed tackle rate, really ideally for secondary defenders. If you can get that around 10%, that's really what you're wanting. Single digits is great. That's where kind of Cam Curls kind of lived for the majority of the past 3 years. But Whitehead, he's always been a guy that's in double digits. And that's really just a factor of how his play style is. He's a wild, kind of really aggressive, but he can be over aggressive. He drops his head, he lunges, he kind of dives at people's feet instead of just being really more fundamentally sound. And I do think, typically guys with shorter arms do have higher missed tackle rates too. So even though he is strong, especially for his size, there's just, the lack of tackling range is a little bit of an issue there. So, but a good player, someone that you can trust to obviously play near the box, near the line of scrimmage. And also, if you want to make your safeties interchangeable, play him in the deep third on third and long situations. He's got enough range and instincts to do that as well, although I definitely prefer him in the box, just my opinion in the Steelers scheme. Pro Football Focus projects him 2 years, 12 million, 6.5 million guaranteed. It's a nice short contract, and it would give them an upgrade over what they had last season. I also think, Whitehead, I wonder what he would think about coming home to play, a place where he, played a lot of ball in college. And I think it would be kind of a cool homecoming moment for him. But I definitely think, with the safety market being what it is, he's a guy that's going to have several suitors. But I expect, Pittsburgh to at least show some interest in him because I think just he fits a lot of the boxes that they want. And then I'm also going to talk about probably one of my favorite guys that I've watched recently in terms of just watching these free agents and stuff, Julian Blackman from the Colts. Blackman's a really interesting player, man. 26 years old, or he'll be 26 years old next season. He's 6 foot, 190 pounds. Just going over his alignments from last year: 468 snaps in the box, 308 snaps at free safety, and then 175 snaps in the slot. Very interesting profile because I remember this dude coming out of Utah a long time. Well, not a long time ago, 4 years ago. This dude he was a former cornerback at Utah, made the transition to safety. But he has a background like in high school, he played baseball, basketball, track. He was a long jump state champion in high school as well. Could have definitely went, I think, played college ball in the other sports as well. He gave up baseball, I think, after his 10th grade year. But he's an athlete. This dude is a very good athlete. He's an interchangeable safety who's coming off the best season of his career in terms of interceptions with 4. And then he also had the lowest missed tackle rate of his season or of his career as well. I think somewhere in the 7% range. So the move down to the box that they made, first 3 years, he played more of that free safety role in Gus Bradley's cover 3 heavy defense. They moved him to the second level. And really the idea behind that was they wanted to get him around the ball more. They wanted to get him closer to the line of scrimmage to allow him to make plays and show off that playmaking ability that he has. And it paid off. He had a really good season. He was able to stay healthy. Really impressive moments in split field deployments. Like I said, they play a lot of cover 3, but I felt like when they went cover 2, he had some really nice moments, some pass breakups in those assignments. Good lateral mover with the requisite amount of range. So if you want to flip him back to the deep part of the field, he has no problem going sideline to sideline. Really good in pursuit from the backside, runs the alley well as a tackler. I think he anticipates routes well, both combinations and just things developing in front of him. You consistently see him really in the hip pocket of receivers and tight ends. The only things that I wrote down as far as like potential negatives in the game or two that I watched, transitions can be a little bit clunky sometimes. A lot of times when corners transition to safety, it's a lot of that fluidity aspect, or maybe a long speed thing. But for him, kind of weird. I saw some just he had some trouble just flipping his hips and running down the field, and some moments where it almost ended up him on the turf. So transitions were a little clunky. I want to look at that, if he ends up here. And then I thought play fakes occasionally got him out of sorts or out of position. It was funny. He had an interception, I believe it was against the Patriots, where he bit really hard on a play fake and they ran the tight end behind him, but the throw was so underthrown that he actually got back and made the interception. So it's good that he had the ability to recover there. But I did notice that there were a couple times where he got caught out of position a little bit on play fakes. So Pro Football Focus anticipates him at 2 years, 11.5 million, 6 million guaranteed. I know the Colts are going to really want this dude back. Like I said, he's turning 26 years old. These guys that are already going for their re-up, their second contracts at 25, 26, those are guys that typically teams want to retain, right? Because they still have, they're entering the prime of their careers. They still have plenty of shelf life left. And, I'm sure that the Colts are going to want Blackman back, especially because how young their secondary was last year. A lot of young corners playing, really inconsistent safety play as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I'm aware of, next to him with, some young guys that just haven't really, they're not really there yet in terms of their development. I'm sure they're going to want him back as a vet. But I mean, he's gonna be testing the market. He's gonna have suitors. I'm hoping that the Steelers are one of those suitors. The only thing I think the reason that his market is what it is, I think he would be able to get a little bit more, maybe a little bit more of a term in terms of like maybe like a 3-year, 4-year deal. He's had some struggles staying healthy just over the course of his career. And, when you're talking about a guy who's 190 pounds and you're transitioning him maybe towards more of a box safety role instead of that free safety role, how is his body going to hold up long term in those physical environments, having to take on blocks and things like that? But he does a good job navigating that space. He dips his shoulder. Like I said, he's really good in pursuit. Very smart player. I'm a fan of Julian Blackman. I would like to see them show some interest in him, but it'll be interesting to see. I mean, there is a lot of guys in this free agent market. I mean, I just mentioned 3 of them, but there's so many other players that are really good players. Xavier McKinney, loved him coming out of Alabama. Geno Stone, I think, led the NFL in interceptions last year for Baltimore. Jordan Fuller was a guy who I liked coming out as a day 3 guy. Played, in that in Raheem Morris's defense. He's more of that free safety role. But regardless of what the Steelers want, in terms of if they're looking for a free safety, if they're looking for a strong safety, a box safety, a dime backer, you can find it in this class. And because there's so many guys available, you can even think of some of the bigger names. Justin Simmons still playing at an incredibly high level. Jamal Adams hasn't had the last couple of seasons have been down years for him, but still a big name that I'm sure is going to have some suitors out in the market. So I don't know if the Steelers, I don't know what their plan is. I think for me personally, I just want to know what the plan is for Fitzpatrick. Is he going to be a center fielder? Is he going to play in the box? Is he a chess piece? And then the reason why I kind of high pointed or highlighted these 3 guys in particular is because I really don't know how they feel about that. And I think that all 3 of these guys to some degree can be interchangeable pieces to allow Fitzpatrick to do what he wants to do or what they want him to do based on the opponent. So, but let me know what you guys think of these 3 guys. Any names in particular you like? Again, just please make sure that you like the video, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. All that stuff helps support the channel and allows me to bring more content to you guys. My game plan is, with free agency starting on Monday, at some point on Sunday or maybe Monday morning, I want to have a cornerback preview. But we'll just see. I'll have to carve out the time to do it, but that's the plan as of right now. But I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. As always, peace.